The forgotten soldier, the old man sat alone on the edge of the ruined colony, his chair creaking with every movement. His eyes were tired, his face marked with scars, and his hands trembled as if they carried the weight of 1,000 battles. He was a veteran, a forgotten soldier, one who had lived through wars that most people only knew from old reports. Children sometimes passed by him, whispering among themselves. They saw an old human who muttered strange words and looked at the sky as if he was waiting for something. To them, he was just another broken soul left behind by history. But they did not know that he had seen things no one else dared to speak about. He had seen humanity break the galaxy's strongest armies. The night was quiet, but the silence did not comfort him. Every sound reminded him of ships burning in space, of screams carried through cones, and of the crushing noise when entire fleets collided. He would close his eyes, but the memories were always there. Memories of a time when humanity stood alone against the galaxy and survived. Once he had been strong, a soldier of the human fleet. When the call to arms came, he had stood with pride. But years of fighting had stolen everything from him, his friends, his family, his health. Only his memories remained, and they were heavier than armor. One evening, a young worker from the colony approached him. The boy asked, "Old man, why do you always sit here and stare at the sky?" The veteran looked at him, and for a moment, the boy felt the weight of centuries in those eyes. "Because the stars remember," the veteran said slowly. "They remember the day humanity refused to kneel." The boy laughed nervously. "But the galaxy is full of armies. They say humans almost died out long ago." The veteran gave a small smile. "Almost," he whispered, "but not quite. Do you know why?" The boy shook his head. The veteran leaned closer and said, "Because numbers do not win wars, spirit does." The words sounded strange to the boy, but they stayed with him. The veteran's voice carried a tone of certainty, as if he had lived through something impossible, something the galaxy wanted to forget. Long ago, when the alien coalition formed, their fleets darkened entire star systems. They had technology older than Earth itself. They had soldiers bred only for war, and they believed humanity was weak, fragile, and unworthy of survival. The galaxy laughed at the idea of humans fighting back, but the veteran had been there. He had seen the laughter die. The first battle had been at Orion's gate. The galaxy expected Earth's fleet to shatter. Like glass, the veteran remembered sitting in his seat, heart racing, sweat dripping down his neck. Every screen showed the enemy ships stretching from horizon to horizon, but when the order came, humanity did not run. They charged. The boy leaned forward as the veteran spoke. His voice was low but powerful. "Do you know what happens when prey turns and bites the predator?" The boy shook his head again. The veteran's eyes shone like fire. "The predator bleeds, and it learns fear." The aliens had never faced Deathworlders before. They had never seen a species fight with such hunger. Humanity's ships moved in ways the enemy did not expect. They turned wreckage into weapons. They turned hopeless battles into traps. And they never stopped fighting. The veteran fell silent, his breath heavy. The boy whispered, "Is that why you sit here? Because you saw all of that?" The old soldier nodded. His voice cracked as he answered, "I saw the strongest armies in the galaxy crumble. I saw their fleets burn while humans kept pushing forward. And I knew then that the galaxy would never be the same again." The stars above twinkled coldly, but to the veteran, they were not peaceful. To him, every star was a memory of fire and steel. And though the war had ended, he knew another would come. Because the galaxy had not forgotten, and neither had he. As the boy walked away, he turned back one last time. The old man was still staring at the sky, lips moving as if he was speaking to ghosts. His hands rested on the arm of his chair, trembling slightly. The boy realized then that the veteran was not just remembering, he was warning. And somewhere deep inside, the veteran whispered to himself, "I saw humanity break the galaxy's armies once, and if they try again, they will see it happen once more. The night wind carried his words into the dark. Like a secret, only the stars were allowed to keep asterisk the gathering storm. The colony woke the next morning under a red sunrise. The air smelled of smoke from old ruins, and workers moved quietly through the streets, carrying tools instead of weapons. But the veteran knew the silence was fragile. He had felt it before, the silence before a storm. He sat in his chair as usual, eyes fixed on the sky. His mind was not in the present. It was drifting back to the day when the galaxy gathered its armies. He could still hear the voices of alien generals shouting over coms, their pride heavy, their confidence unshaken. They thought humanity would break like thin glass. The young boy from the night before returned. Curious, he asked, "Old man, tell me more. How could humans fight against so many?" The veteran's lips curled into a bitter smile. Because the galaxy did not understand what it means to fight for survival. They fought for conquest, for glory. We fought because we had no choice. The boy frowned. But they had more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. The veteran's eyes grew sharp. Yes, they had all of that. But do you know what happens when armies fight only because they are told to? They do not bleed for each other. They do not die for each other. Humans did. His words carried weight. Each one pressed into the boy's heart like stone. The veteran leaned back, staring at the clouds. The aliens called it the Great Assembly. Never before had so many species gathered their fleets together. They believed numbers could erase a world. They believed unity could crush spirit. But they did not know the storm they were calling down upon themselves. The boy asked softly, "Were you there when they gathered?" A veteran nodded slowly. "I was in the outer rim then. Our scouts reported fleets stretching across the void. I remember looking at the displays and thinking, this is not war. This is extermination." Ships from every alien empire answered. The call, massive dreadnoughts with weapons that could shatter moons, carriers with wings of fighters like endless swarms, armies bred in vats for nothing but killing. The galaxy's strongest, united under one banner, marching against one small world, Earth, the boy whispered. And no one came to help? The veteran shook his head. No one. The galaxy wanted us gone. They thought we were a mistake, a death world race that should never have left its cradle. To them we were too dangerous, too wild, too unpredictable, so they joined hands to wipe. Use out. He closed his eyes for a moment. His voice dropped lower, trembling with memory. I still hear their voices sometimes. Commanders bragging about how long humanity would last. One said a month, another said a week, one laughed, and said a day. But not one of them guessed the truth. Not one guessed that humanity would stand against all of them. The boy sat in silence, waiting. The veteran's hands tightened on the arms of his chair, his knuckles pale. The storm was coming. Child, and it was greater than anything the stars had ever seen. But storms can destroy both ways. The aliens thought they were the thunder, but they did not see the lightning that was waiting in us. His voice hardened. When the fleets moved, whole star systems went dark under their shadows. Colonies fled. Planets surrendered without a fight. It was a tide of fear sweeping across the galaxy. And yet, in the middle of it, humanity stood still. The boy's eyes widened. But how? How could humans even try to fight something that big? The veteran's lips curved into a grim smile. Because we knew something they did not. Armies are strongest when they believe in victory. But when that belief is broken, when fear seeps. And even the strongest army can crumble. And we were very good at making them afraid. He leaned forward, his voice sharp as a blade. Remember this, child, when Cray fights with the rage of survival, it can become the predator, and when the predator hesitates, even for a breath, it is already beaten. The sky above rumbled with distant thunder, as if the world itself remembered. The boy shivered. Though the air was warm, the veteran closed. His eyes, his voice fading into a whisper. The gathering storm was not just theirs. It was ours too. For every human who had lost a home, a family, a world, the storm burned in their hearts. And when it broke, the galaxy learned what it means to fight Deathworlders. The boy looked at him with wide eyes. He wanted to ask more, but he felt the old man's silence was final. The story was not finished, but the veteran was done speaking for now. His gaze had returned to the sky, watching the clouds drift, as if waiting for the storm to appear again. And as the wind blew dust across the colony streets, the boy understood. One thing clearly, whatever was coming, the veteran had already seen it once, and it had changed the galaxy forever. Asterisk. Humanity's defiance. The veteran's chair groaned as he leaned forward. His voice was softer this time, but it carried a fire that pulled the boy closer. You wanted to know how humans stood when the storm came? He asked. The boy nodded quickly, eyes wide with curiosity. The veteran's lips tightened into a line. It was not courage alone. It was defiance, pure, burning defiance. We had nothing compared to them, no endless fleets, no ancient technology. But we had something stronger. We had the will to fight, even when defeat was certain. He paused, his hand trembling as it hovered in the air, as though he was pointing at an enemy only he could see. I remember the first time they demanded our surrender. The coalition sent a message. It was cold, arrogant. They told us to lay down our weapons and accept extinction with dignity. They believed we would bow, but humanity does not bow. Boy's breath caught. What did we say back? The veteran chuckled, though it was not a sound of joy. It was the sound of memory cutting deep. We told them no. We told them if they wanted Earth, they would have to take it over our ashes. The galaxy called it madness. We called it survival. The boy leaned closer. And then? The veteran's eyes gleamed with the fire of the past. Then we fought back, child. Not with huge fleets at first. Not with overwhelming force. We fought with small strikes, ambushes, raids in the dark. We turned every human ship into a knife, every crew into a weapon, and we bled them piece by piece. The boy frowned. But they were millions. How could that matter? The veteran's smile grew sharper. Because every time we fought, we showed them something they had never seen. We showed them that Deathworlders do not surrender. We showed them that even when outnumbered, humans strike harder, fight longer, and refuse to die quietly. He tapped his chest with a shaky hand. I was there, on the edge of Orion's gate. We were a small fleet, barely a fraction of their size. The enemy laughed when they saw us. Their generals said it would be over. In minutes. But when the order came, we did not wait. We charged straight into the storm. The boy's heart raced just from listening. But wasn't that suicide? The veteran nodded slowly. Yes, it should have been. But do you know what happens when the weak refuse to act weak? The strong begin to doubt themselves. We rammed ships twice our size. We turned wreckage into traps. We dragged their dreadnoughts into minefields. Every loss we took tore holes in them too. And for the first time, the galaxy saw us not as prey but as predators. He leaned back, his eyes far away. Defiance became our weapon. Every soldier knew death was coming, but no one turned back. We fought because we refused to let the galaxy decide our fate, and the more we fought, the more cracks began to spread through their armies. The boy whispered, cracks? The veteran nodded. Yes, fear. They had never faced an enemy that would not break. Never faced soldiers who fought harder the more they bled. The coalition soldiers began to whisper, began to hesitate. They wondered, how could such a fragile race stand against them? And in that hesitation, we found strength. The sky above was darkening as the veteran spoke, shadows stretching across the colony. It felt as if the world itself leaned in to listen. His voice deepened. Do you understand now, child? Defiance is more dangerous than numbers. When you refuse to break, you force the enemy to question their victory, and once they question, the storm begins to turn. The boy swallowed, his hands curling into fists. He could almost see it. Small human ships diving into massive alien fleets, explosions tearing across the stars, the roar of voices refusing to surrender. It was madness. It was impossible. And yet it was real. The veteran's gaze grew heavy. I watched friends die with smiles on their faces, not because they wanted to die, but because they wanted to make sure humanity lived one day longer. That spirit, that hunger, that fire, no army in the galaxy could match it. His words hung in the air like smoke. The boy's chest ached with the weight of them. For the first time, he began to understand why the old man sat staring at the stars every night. The veteran whispered one last line before falling silent. Defiance, child, is the weapon the galaxy never saw coming, and it was the reason their strongest armies began to fall. The wind howled softly through the ruins, carrying the weight of his words into the night. And the boy knew this was only the beginning of the story. Asterisk the first shatter. The night grew colder, yet the veteran's voice burned hotter. The boy sat at his feet, unable to leave. His eyes glowed with curiosity, while the old man's eyes glowed with memory. The boy whispered, "You said cracks started forming in their armies. Did they ever break?" The veteran leaned forward, his hands shaking as if they still held a rifle. "Yes," he said slowly. "I saw it. I was there when the galaxy's strongest army shattered, and when it happened, the stars themselves seemed to tremble." He paused, his breath heavy. It was at Orion's gate. The coalition had gathered one of its greatest fleets, hundreds of dreadnoughts, carriers, and destroyers. Their banners stretched across the sky like a wall of fire. To them it was a show of dominance. To us it was a challenge. And humanity does not step back from challenges. The boy swallowed hard. But how could you face them? They were too many. The veteran smiled faintly. We did not plan to win the battle, child. We planned to make them bleed. We planned to remind them that Deathworlders never die quietly. His voice dropped into a whisper. I remember the silence before the charge. Every ship waiting. Every soldier gripping their weapons. We all thought we would not return, but no one turned away. We knew if humanity was to survive, someone had to stand, and we stood. The boy leaned closer, his heart racing as if he was there himself. The veteran's eyes sharpened. When? The order came. Our ships roared forward, small against the endless wall of alien steel. They fired everything they had, confident they would crush us in moments. But that was their mistake. They thought war was about numbers. They did not understand. Humans fight with cunning as well as courage. He raised a trembling hand, as if tracing the path of ships in the air. Our commanders turned the battlefield into a trap. We lured their dreadnoughts into asteroid fields mined with explosives. We hid ships in the wreckage of old battles, waiting for the perfect moment. And when their fleets pushed forward, we struck from the shadows. The boy gasped. So you tricked them? The veteran nodded. Yes, and more. We fought like wolves. Every ship that fell became a weapon. Even wrecks were turned into fire. When one of our cruisers was destroyed, its burning hull drifted into their lines and tore through them. When we lost, we still struck. That was something they never understood. Our defeat was never empty. The veteran's voice grew stronger, shaking the still night. And then it happened, the first shatter. One of their greatest fleets collapsed under the weight of their arrogance. I watched their lines break. Dreadnoughts turning, soldiers panicking. Their generals screamed at them to hold. But fear had already spread like fire. They were not fighting prey anymore. They were fighting predators. The boy's eyes widened, his heart pounding. Did you really see them run? The veteran let out a bitter laugh. I did. Imagine it, child. The galaxy's strongest soldiers fleeing before a species they had called weak. Their mighty ships scattering like frightened birds. Their banners burning in the void. I saw it. And I will never forget it. He leaned back, his voice lowering into something heavy and dark. Do you know what it means when the strongest army runs? It means the galaxy begins to doubt itself. It means the myth of their invincibility is broken. And once a myth is broken, it can never be rebuilt. The boy sat in silence, the weight of those words pressing against his chest. The veteran continued, his eyes far away. We did not win that day with power. We won with spirit, with defiance. We showed the galaxy that no matter how strong their armies were, they could bleed, and once they bled, they could break, the boy whispered. And the war changed? The veteran nodded slowly. Yes, from that day on, the war was different. The coalition still had numbers, still had weapons, but they no longer had certainty. And that doubt spread like a sickness. It made them slower, weaker, fearful. Humanity had shown them something no weapon could erase. The night wind carried dust across the ruins. The boy hugged his knees, shivering, not from the cold, but from the image now carved into his mind of burning ships, of mighty fleets broken, of humans standing tall in the storm. The veteran's voice softened, but it carried a sharp edge. Remember this, child? Armies are not broken by weapons alone. They are broken by fear, and once fear touches even the strongest, it spreads like fire through dry grass. That was the day humanity lit that fire, and the galaxy has never forgotten. He fell silent, his chest rising and falling with effort. The boy looked up at him, seeing not just an old man, but a soldier who had watched the impossible become real. And as the stars flickered above, the veteran whispered to himself, that was the first shatter, and it was only the beginning. Asterisk. The turning point, the fire in the veteran's eyes did not fade as he spoke. Instead, it grew, as if the memory of that battle still burned inside him. The boy sat on the cracked stone near his feet, leaning forward, every word pulling him deeper. Into the tale. The first shatter changed everything, the veteran said, his voice heavy. Before that day, the galaxy thought of us as insects, a problem to be crushed. After that day, they began to whisper, they began to fear. The boy tilted his head. But they still had more armies, didn't they? They could still fight, the veteran nodded. Yes, child. They had armies larger than entire continents, fleets that stretched across star systems. But they had lost something more valuable than ships. They had lost certainty. He leaned closer, his words sharp as steel. When you break the strongest army, you do not just win a battle. You tear a hole in belief. And belief is what holds empires together. Without it, cracks spread faster than any weapon. The boy whispered, so they were afraid of us? The veteran gave a bitter smile. Afraid, yes, though they would never admit it. At first, they claimed the defeat was only luck, that humans could not repeat it. But deep down, they began to doubt. They began to ask, what if these Deathworlders are stronger than we thought? The boy's breath quickened. What did humanity do next? The veteran's eyes darkened. We kept fighting, harder than before. Our leaders knew the first shatter was not enough. We had to strike again, to prove it was no accident. So our fleets spread across the stars like fire. We turned every weakness into a weapon, every mistake of theirs into a lesson for us. He paused, rubbing the scar on his jaw. The galaxy thought we would defend, hide, wait for mercy, but we did the opposite. We attacked. We struck at supply. Lines, ambushed convoys, raided outposts. We made them bleed from 1,000 cuts. And each cut reminded them of Orion's gate. The boy leaned in. Did they fight back stronger? The veteran's voice grew sharp. Of course, they sent larger fleets, more soldiers. But their strength became their weakness. The bigger their armies, the slower they moved, the harder they fell. And every time they thought they had trapped us, we broke free and turned the trap on them. The wind rustled through the ruins around them, carrying dust into the air. The boy shivered, imagining the galaxy's mightiest forces stumbling, bleeding, confused by a race they thought was weak. The veteran's voice lowered, filled with weight. The turning point was not a single battle. It was a feeling, a shadow that spread across the stars. For the first time, the galaxy asked itself, what if humans cannot be beaten? The boy's mouth went dry. He whispered, is that when they started losing? The veteran shook his head. Not yet. They still had power, still had numbers, but their hearts were no longer steady. And once the heart shakes, the body follows. He looked up at the sky, his eyes reflecting the stars. I remember the day I first saw fear in an alien's eyes. We had boarded one of their warships. A beast of steel meant to crush us. I stormed through its halls with my squad, and when we cornered their captain, he dropped his weapon. He was stronger than me, faster than me, armored better than me, but he looked at me and saw death. Do you understand, child? In that moment, he was no longer the predator. I was. The boy's breath caught in his throat. He could almost see it, the great alien captain trembling before a scarred human soldier. The image etched itself into his mind. The veteran's voice hardened. That was the turning point. Not a battle, not a victory, but the moment fear spread, it reached their soldiers, their leaders, their people. It told them that humans would not bow, would not break, would not die as prey. And from then on, every time they faced us, they carried that fear with them. The boy hugged his knees tighter, his chest heavy with the weight of the story. He whispered, so after that, the galaxy was never the same. The veteran nodded slowly, his voice low. Never the same? The first shatter showed them we could win. The turning point showed them we would never stop. And once the galaxy understood that truth, the war had already changed forever. He leaned back in his chair, his body trembling with both exhaustion and memory. His eyes closed for a moment, but his lips still moved, whispering words as if he was speaking to ghosts. The boy looked up at the sky, the same sky the veteran stared at every night, and he realized something that chilled him. This was not just a story. It was a warning. Humanity had once turned the galaxy's strength into weakness, and if pushed again, they could do it once more. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the echo of the veteran's final words for the night. The turning point was when the galaxy began to fear us, child. And fear is a weapon sharper than any blade. Asterisk the final stand. The night had grown deep, the stars sharp against the black sky. The boy's face glowed pale in the starlight as he whispered, old man. What happened when they finally came for Earth? The veteran's body stiffened. His hand gripped the arm of his chair so tightly it creaked. His eyes darkened as if he was staring into a memory that had never left him. His voice came low and heavy, like thunder rolling far away. They came. With everything, he said, every fleet, every soldier, every weapon the galaxy could build. The coalition called it the Great Purge. Their goal was not victory, it was extinction. They swore Earth would be erased from the stars. The boy's throat went dry. How many? The veteran's lips twisted. Too many to count. Millions of warships. Soldiers by the billions. They surrounded our system until the stars themselves were hidden. The sky was filled with banners of empires who wanted us gone. I remember standing on the deck of my ship, staring at them and thinking this is the end. He closed his eyes, his breath shaky. But even then, we did not bow. Our leaders spoke one last time. They told us, if we die, let it be with fire in our hands. And so we prepared for the final stand. The boy leaned forward, his heart pounding. The veteran's voice sharpened. Do you know what it means to fight when you are certain you will die? It frees you. There is no fear, no hesitation, only fire. That was the spirit of humanity on that day, and the galaxy had never faced anything like it. He lifted his trembling hand, tracing lines in the air as though drawing ships. The battle began with silence, and then the void lit up with fire. Their fleets pressed forward like a tide, but we turned the tide against them. Our ships rammed, our soldiers boarded, Our weapons burned until they broke. Even as Earth itself shook under bombardment, we refused to surrender. The boy whispered, "But you were so outnumbered." The veteran's eyes glowed fiercely. "Yes, but numbers mean nothing when spirit is stronger. They fought to drown us in steel, but they only gave us more targets. Every human ship fought until it was ash, and even then, its wreckage became a blade. We fought in the sky. We fought on the ground. We fought in the ashes of cities. And Han, with every strike, the galaxy saw the truth Deathworlders do not kneel." His voice dropped low, almost a growl. "I still hear the screams of their generals, shouting for their troops to press forward, but hesitation had already spread. For every soldier they killed, 10 more of ours rose to fight. They began to fear us, not as an enemy, but as something unstoppable, something eternal." The boy felt his chest tighten. Was it enough? The veteran's face grew grim. "No, child, we bled. We bled more than ever before. Cities burned, fleets shattered. We were standing on the edge of extinction, but that was when humanity revealed its greatest truth. We never fight alone. They—" Boy blinked, confused. "But no one came to help you. You said so yourself." The veteran shook his head slowly. "Not other species, not allies. We had none. But every human farmer, worker, soldier, child, every one of us fought. The galaxy brought armies, but Earth itself became a weapon. Humanity itself became a weapon." He leaned forward, his voice sharp as steel. "Do you know what happens when an entire world rises as one? Armies crumble, empires shake. The galaxy came to end us, but instead, they faced something greater than they had ever known: unity. The unity of a people who refused to die." The boy could almost hear it, the roar of battle, the clash of steel, the sky burning with fire. He hugged himself tightly, shivering though the night was still. The veteran's voice dropped into silence for a moment. Then he whispered, "That was the final stand. It was not victory, not in the way you think. We lost so much. We were torn, broken, scattered, but we endured. And when the smoke cleared, the galaxy saw what they had failed to erase. They saw us still standing," the boy whispered. "And they feared you even more." The veteran's eyes shone in the starlight, a mix of pride and sorrow. "Yes, they feared us, because they finally understood. You can shatter our fleets, you can burn our cities, but you cannot erase our will. And that is why the final stand became more than a battle. It became a promise. If they tried again, we would rise again." The old soldier leaned back, his body heavy with memory. His hands trembled, but his voice held steady as he spoke his last words for the night. "Remember this, child. Fear can win a battle, but spirit wins wars. And on that day, humanity's spirit was stronger than the galaxy itself." The wind moved through the ruins, carrying the weight of his words into the endless dark. Asterisk. The veteran's truth and night had grown silent, the wind gone still, as though the stars themselves leaned closer to listen. The boy sat on the broken stone, his small hands gripping his knees, his eyes locked on the veteran, waiting, because he knew the story was nearing its end. The old soldier's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. His face was lined with scars. His hands trembled, but his voice carried strength. He looked not at the boy, but at the sky, as if speaking to the ghosts of the past. "I fought," he whispered. "I bled. I lost everything I loved, but I gained a truth the galaxy itself could not hide. Humanity is not strong because of its weapons, or its fleets, or its numbers. We are strong because we refuse to kneel." The boy's voice was soft. "But you survived when so many didn't. Why you?" The veteran's eyes darkened. "Survival is not a gift, child. It is a burden. I carry the memory of every comrade who fell, every city that burned. I carry it so the galaxy never forgets what happens when they try to erase us. I carry it because if we forget, it will all happen again." He leaned forward, his gaze sharp. "Do you know what the galaxy fears most about us?" The boy shook his head, his lips parted. The veteran answered with a voice that seemed to shake the air itself. "They fear that we are impossible to kill. They fear that no matter how many armies they send, no matter how many fleets they burn, humanity will always rise again, stronger than before. That is what I saw with my own eyes." The boy swallowed. "But isn't the war over now?" A veteran gave a bitter smile. "Wars never end, child. They sleep, waiting for the day when pride wakes them again. The galaxy is quiet now, but quiet does not mean peace. It only means the storm has not yet broken, and when it comes again, humanity will be ready." He raised his shaking hand, pointing at the stars. "Look at them, boy. Every one of those stars remembers. They remember the fleets that burned, the armies that broke, the screams of generals who thought they could crush us. The stars remember, and so do I." The boy shivered, his small heart pounding with the weight of the truth. The veteran's voice dropped low, softer, almost gentle. "Do you know why I sit here every night? Not to remember the past, not to mourn the dead. I sit here so the children of tomorrow know the truth. So they know that humanity is more than blood and war. We are survival. We are defiance. And that is what makes us feared." Tears welled in the boy's eyes, though he did not fully understand why. He whispered, "And you? You saw it all?" The veteran nodded slowly. "I did. I saw the galaxy's strongest army shatter. I saw death turned into victory. I saw fear spread like fire across empires that thought they were unbreakable, and I saw humanity rise from the ashes, unbroken." His voice cracked, but he pressed on. "Remember this, child. Humanity never wanted war, never wanted conquest. We only wanted to live. But when the galaxy tried to erase us, we showed them that survival itself can be a weapon. And once that weapon is unleashed, it cannot be stopped." The boy's throat tightened. He whispered, "What will happen if they come again?" A veteran smiled, a weary, scarred smile. His eyes glowed with both sorrow and pride. "Then they will learn the same lesson once more. Humanity does not vanish. Humanity does not kneel. If the galaxy forgets that truth, we will remind them. And I promise you, child, I will not be the only one watching." He leaned back, his eyes drifting closed for a moment. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant howl of wind returning. For a heartbeat, the boy thought the old soldier had fallen asleep. But then, a veteran spoke again, his words heavy, final. "I am the witness. I am the burden. I am the voice of every soldier who fell. And I will keep telling this story until the stars themselves burn out. So the galaxy remembers, and so humanity never forgets." The boy sat in silence, his chest full of fire. He would never forget this night, never forget the truth carried. By the old man's voice, the veteran opened his eyes one last time, staring at the sky. His lips curved into a faint smile, and he whispered, "I saw it happen, child. I saw humanity shatter the galaxy's strongest armies. And if they come again, I will see it happen once more." The stars flickered above them, carrying his words into the endless dark asterisk.